I had my head up my ass or something, but why have I not heard of Burning Dogma Records until now? I thought it was like some brand new label, but apparently you've been around for a while, for I guess. Since how long?
Oh man, I'm about 20 years almost. I think. I can't even. Maybe 2001 is when I started.
Okay. And what was the earliest releases you did for Burning Dogma?
First one I did was the Repudilation self-titled
Yep.
compilation of all their stuff, and I did the Alienation Metal Kingle demo on CD. And I know I went for the Missing Shiri and Federal Clamor Query Cave Lamentation CD. I can't remember the exact orders and stuff was good, and I know Repudilation and Alienation Metal was the first two, but it's been so long I don't even pay attention much anymore. I just kind of roll with it.
Okay. Do you mainly do reissues of older stuff, or are you into releasing more newer material as well?
I prefer older compilations, like a band's recording history. I prefer doing that because when it comes to the newer music, you got to push the band a little harder and help the band out a lot more. And I'm someone who hangs out in the jungle a lot. I just am busy doing certain stuff and don't have the time, the energy to put out so much new stuff. But just recently, I did take on a newer band for the first time in the entire label career. But yeah, I primarily only care about doing older stuff, reissue stuff.
Okay, that makes sense. I felt like I took a trip back to 1997 looking at your roster. I'll have to order the Fleshgrind demos and, of course, the Repudilation demos as well. So, what are your biggest sellers?
Oh man, well, the Splatter Cadaver Human Stew was always that was a good one. That did wonderfully well. I sold out them rather quickly. When I did Repudilation the first time around, a number of them got stolen, so I don't consider them. They were a good seller, but so many of them got stolen that it was kind of I ran out of them quickly because of that. It wasn't because it just sells really great. Um, I ended up I thought 200 of them got stolen at a show from a box.
Oh,
Um, yeah, and then I did a number of trades with them that I never got the trades back. So that was so long ago. That one did do pretty good. It once the niche scene, once everything sells out or you're out of it, that's when people start wanting it. Kind of
yeah.
strange like that. So that's how that worked. The Alienation Mental Copper Tingle actually did really good. Um, some of the earlier stuff in the from 2001 to about 2006 era, that stuff did pretty good because CDs just simply sold better than they do now.
Hmm.
When it comes to modern day, like the Clean Flesh has done all right. It didn't do as good as I originally thought, but it did all right. What did I do? The Flesh Grind, the demo days has done pretty good. The Wicked Innocence on the Poet has done fantastic. That one's one of the best ones I've had. Actually, I would say that's probably the best seller I've ever had. That one.
Right. So, what releases would you like to re-release that you have not yet done? I recommend Count the Dead by Infamy or Conceived Through Vomit by Regurgitation.
Okay, see, I don't now the regurgitation tape. I have that one, but I've never liked that demo. I thought the full length was really good, but
Mhm.
I just did not like that demo. I think I still have that demo actually. And the Infamy, yeah. Now the Count the Dead's good, but Infamy's one of those bands. Different members once Josh died, that band changed. Really never. I think they only did two songs after that. But I'm not sure if I'd ever do that one because nowadays I'm only going to do stuff that possibly has selling potential versus some of that older stuff I've had in my label a number of times to distribute it. And fortunately, can't do shit with it. People just don't buy it. Uh, if you just look at vinyls, I know they like the Blood Shall Flow came out. Can't give those damn things away for whatever. So as I've gone on through the years, I've been very careful about what I release. As much as I like some of the stuff, doesn't have any kind of selling potential. It's just a waste of plastic and a waste of money to press. A lot of these labels in the scene, we sit on thousands and thousands of CDs that simply don't move.
All right. So, what's going on in Texas as far as extreme metal goes right now?
We got a whole bunch of stuff going on. I mean, there's like Frozen Souls, a local band here at DFW. They got probably one of the more popular ones, but they're that new age of bands that pretty much to me take a bunch of Bolt Thor riffs, a bunch of Asphyx riffs, a bunch of Morbid Angel old riffs, just old riffs, and kind of rework them and put them in their songs, and change them up. And those kind of bands seem to be the most popular thing right now. We have locally here, we still got some good stuff. We got Countryside, that has old members of the band is Long, which is from the 90s, and the band Gruesome Favor, which is from the 90s. We got a band called the Stein, it's really nice and brutal from here. We got Empty Shell, that's actually a band on my label. They're actually a newer band, I suppose. I put a few things out by them, and you still got Devour floating around. I think they're about to do their final tour, and I'm pretty sure they should probably call it quits after that. And then you got the Houston scene, which, oh man, I can't remember all of it. We have so many bands that's rather hard to keep up with them, especially since a lot of them don't really have their own sound or anything, and kind of can be just run of the mill. So I've always been picky about that with my label, actually trying to release stuff that has its own sound and style and kind of stands apart. So that's one thing I've been picky about. I do have some bands that are heavily influenced by Immolation, Mortician, and stuff like that, but I've always tried to go for bands that have their own sound. We don't have a lot of that in Texas. That's not something we have a lot of it.
Right. I lived in Austin for 8 years, and there were a lot of great bands, but yeah, maybe it's just like, I'm getting older and a little bit more desensitized, a little bit more jaded, but the music was still good, but there was nothing spectacularly new. How familiar are you with Austin and those venues and those bands?
Well, I mean, I drive through Austin quite often. I personally hate the fucking city. It's pretty peaceful. But I'm not even sure the band's from Austin. That's the thing. With Texas, it's so big, and I'm up here in the DFW Metroplex, and a lot of them bands come up here. And there's so many bands that come up here from either the Houston area, the Austin area, or some of the San Antonio ones that I can't even tell you where most of them are from anymore. When I see the guys' faces, I'm like, oh, hey, what's up? But, yeah, they just kind of show up at all the fests, and you see them over and over. So when it comes to the geography of it, if they're not from the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, most of them I probably can't even tell you where they're at from anymore. I know Severance, which is our oldest running band. Severance is the oldest Texas death metal band that keeps on going. They've been doing it since '89. They're the oldest one, and they still have their own kind of sound. So I know where they're from in Dallas, Texas, but I can't do it like I used to because so many bands in the scene, in the Texas scene, they pop up, they go away, they pop up. If they don't just stand out and grab me, they just kind of get right lost in the middle there.
All right. Perfect. Now let's get on to Clean Flesh. For those of you who are not familiar, who are listening, Clean Flesh was a band from rural Ohio. I grew up in the same area that two of the members did. And they didn't have too much local popularity, but throughout the underground, they became a cult classic. I had a copy of their CD back in '97 when it came out, and it got stolen about a year later. I doubt whoever stole it had any idea the amount of money it would be eventually worth. Well, actually, nobody could have predicted that outcome. But anyhow, let's get to the questions about this. What on earth did it take for you to get the members of Clean Flesh on board for the re-release after all these years? I would have thought like a band like that would have, a release like that would have had a sooner reissue, but it took until 2022.
I've known Joe Wolf since Clean Flesh. I originally got the Clean Flesh EP CD from, it was actually sent down here to Fort Worth bar called the Dirty Purge, and the promoter there was like, he heard this band and gave me the CD, and I'm like, holy shit, never heard of it, because Joe was sending out promos at the time. And I got in contact with Joe and started talking to him, and then once we really started getting talking, he kind of quit Clean Flesh, and they started up Erotic Incisions. Then I got Erotic Incision. They were doing the Texas Crime Fest, and I talked to Brian Wynn, which was the guitar player with Environment. He was one that put on the fest, and we got Erotic Incision on there. And it pretty much worked out pretty well. They came down here, they were picky about their time slot and everything, so we gave them a good one. And it was well worth it because they by far were better than any band on that fest. They found some mud hole Environment fest, but that's what Environment was actually good. And to get them on board, I just, after years and years, I heard Joe had, I saw something posted on Facebook about him and killings, that Joe was suffering and all that shit. So I was talking to Joe for many different years about putting it out. It was always one of those things, yeah, sure, you can do it, do it, but nothing ever came from it because he's always kind of difficult to talk to. And
Yep.
finally got a hold of him and started talking to him, and he's like, "You want it?" Because it was getting bootlegged in Russia is what it was going to do. A certain guy out in Russia was going to bootleg it, and I told Joe, "Hey, I'll do it and give you something out of it." And then, yeah, I gave him. Well, he gave me full rights to everything he's ever recorded: the Erotic Incision, the Haven Killing, the Clean Flesh, everything. It turned out some of the stuff you don't technically own the rights to, but yeah, I paid him money and got rights to everything he's ever recorded. So I got it through Joe Wolf. He did it pretty much, I know, without any of the other bands because they don't really seem to be on the same page anymore. But I have talked to Steve Hash, guitar player, and he's on board with it because he's the one I actually had to go through to get the Basement of Death demo because that demo was about as possible to find as it gets. Yeah, I was originally going to do everything on one album, but after I got with Joe, Joe didn't have the demo, so we just put the fourth song out, and I thought I'd never see the demo, and then talked to Steve Hash about it. He's like, "Yeah, man, I have it." So he sent me that with some other rehearsal recordings. So I'm getting that polished up right now, getting it remastered, and getting the layout done, and we're going to do that on something very limited, though, maybe 100 CDs. That's probably about it. It's just not as good as the EP. It's good. It's just more raw. The EP is much more catchier. I think the riffs are darker. But yeah, we're just going to do it like that, and we'll see what happens after that. If it catches on, we could always repress it, do something a little different. And then I have the Erotic Incision recording too, which that is also getting mastered. But we're still trying to put the layout together, which is a tough task. It's not as easy as one would think with some of this old stuff. A lot of these band members didn't save stuff, they don't have stuff, and then you got to search through people that have them. Like when it comes to Basement of Death demo, I found two other guys that had it, but they made it very clear that they don't put it on YouTube or anything because it's public here. It's not worth it to them because it's popular now, which is the only reason they were collecting it. I mean, the two guys who owned the demo couldn't even tell me what it sounded like. Just demo collectors. Well, actually, one of the guys was from Ohio too. And collectors that don't really listen to the music had it, and they only collect it because it's rare. But once it doesn't become rare anymore, it just ain't quite the same value to them.
Okay. Now I've had a list of some of the songs that I knew existed, but can you give me a list of the songs that are going to appear on this upcoming Basement of Death and other recordings?
Okay, the Basement of Death is just going to be the Basement of Death demo itself. All the songs are going to post it on Metal Archives. And there's one extra track. I think it's just drum tracks of the upcoming EP they put out, but it's a rehearsal drum track with the drum machine. It's kind of weird. And then, see, they gave me a tape with other stuff on it, but no one can tell you if it's Clean Flesh or not. Like there's some clean singing through this one other tape. It sounds just like Clean Flesh, but then Joe's doing a lot of clean singing, like a Fear Factory thing. So no one in the band can seem to tell me what the hell this is. We're probably not going to put that on there, but I do have my guy. I have a mastering guy right now cleaning up, going through it, because sometimes with these rehearsals, you can't tell when the song stops and ends. It's just sloppy, kind of. So what I'm doing on the CD though, this Basement of Death, probably just be the Basement of Death with that extra drum track at the end, because everything else either has such a bad sound where it's not worth doing, or that's it. When it comes to Erotic Incision, now you had a Erotic Incision rehearsal demo that got released to the public, so that'll be on there. And then I believe there's 3 other songs. One of them is actually on that rehearsal. It's just a different version of that rehearsal that we got from Harold himself. And that's all that's going to be. So I think that'll be 7 or 8 songs for Erotic Incision. There ain't much else going with it. There is other videos out there and all that, but like I said, getting them for certain collectors, we can't put them on there because they just don't want them on there. The band's cool with having them on there, but collectors that have them, like, if other people have it, it ain't as rare anymore. So I've kind of given up on a lot of these guys. There's a few VHSs out there of Clean Flesh Live. I know they used one of them on the old MySpace page years ago, but getting that footage now just can't be done. And there's a guy here in Texas that actually recorded the entire Erotic Incision live set at the Grind Fest. He just will not cough that video up. It actually has good sound and everything.
Wow.
Yeah, that can't be gotten on there. So, and it's just something, when that guy dies or something, his house burns down or something, that thing's gone forever. So we were trying, there's a lot of stuff out there in the underground like that. We try to save it, preserve it, but some people just ain't about that. So, it's their property. They don't want it. That's fine. That's them.
All right. So you touched on a couple things I was going to bring up in addition. The MySpace rehearsal. That has 4 songs. I forget the title of one, but I think it had to do with menstrual blood. And the other 3 were Impalement of a Whore, She Comes Maggots, and Chunks of Clit. So those were done with the Clean Flesh lineup, with Rick Smith playing guitar, Steve Haas, David Geyer, and of course Joe Wolf. And it was done with that drum machine, which I'm almost positive is an Alesis SR16. And now I've had this debate with Harold Burton, who was the Erotic Incisions guitarist who ultimately replaced Rick Smith. He swears up and down that he wrote that song, but I swear to God, I saw Impalement of a Whore with the Clean Flesh lineup, and it was posted on Rick Smith's MySpace a million years ago. Can you clear that up for me?
Okay, so Rick Smith he doesn't talk. Last time he used to be on my Facebook page, but he didn't talk to me last time I tried to talk to him. So he may have some stuff that we can't get or just has no interest in doing it. I see him comment on videos before, but he doesn't really talk about much. So now I know Impalement of a Whore is also an Erotic Incision song because I have that song, 2 different versions of that song going on the Erotic Incision. Mm-hmm. And yes, Harold didn't inform me that he did write that song. Now, that doesn't mean they didn't change it up or something. I'm not sure because I remember I know what you're talking about on the MySpace, but I haven't seen that in over 15 years probably. So my memory is a bit hazy on it. And those other songs, I can't tell you much about them because we can't get them. MySpace, they're gone off MySpace now, and I don't think Rick's coughed them up, so we can't do much with that. All I've been able to get is stuff that Steve has. Steve is he's been very easy to work with. He's cool, great to work with, like the guy. But that's it. Other than that, no one else is very easy to work with.
My experience is very, very similar. As Steve Haas told me that he did indeed have the Basement of Death demo, wasn't exactly quite sure what to do with it, and then I quit using social media, so I didn't follow up with him on that. Also, there is a different version of, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but coprophagy or, coprophagy, whatever. There's a different version of that, and it starts out with a 4 count on the cymbals, and Joe is using a different vocal style rather than the one you hear on the Clean Flesh EP. And this was on a compilation CD. I can't tell you the name of the compilation CD, but my friend bought one from David Geyer back in '98, maybe earlier. I don't know if you have that.
No, I've never heard of that. I've never heard of it at all. I don't know nothing about it. It's weird because I knew Joe all them times, and when he did Erotic Incisions and everything, he would do things, and I'd actually be talking to him on the phone quite a bit, and then he'd put things out, and not even tell me he put it out. And when it comes to that, when it comes to a lot of Ohio stuff, there's Paul, the singer from Embalmer. He tends to have a lot of stuff saved up, but again, getting it from him, he's always so busy, he don't have time to look for it.
My personal experience is the same too.
Yeah, so getting, like I say, getting a lot of this stuff, if you're just going to wait on it and all that, it means the release will probably never ever get done. So I try to take the initiative of what I've had, and I'm trying to roll with that. Because there's flyers and all kinds of stuff. I'd like to do a college of the layouts and all that with pictures and extra stuff. But the people that have this stuff are just not costed up, or either they're so busy with life, or they're burnt out drug addicts, or whatever you want to call them. And just getting it can be a bit difficult. I try to get what I get. And Harold, he's been pretty cool to work with, but he's given me everything I have for Erotic Incisions I've gotten from Harold. So he's been good to work with. But of course, he wasn't Clean Flesh, so he don't really talk much about that. It just has nothing to do with that. So we're just kind of working on that. But all the other extra Clean Flesh stuff, when it comes to getting it from Joe, that ain't happening. Joe has nothing left. So,
right.
And Joe doesn't quite have the memory anymore to explain anything anymore. It's talking to Joe's a difficult task. So he's changed a little bit. So I just kind of go with what I got. If Steve Hass doesn't supply it, and that what you brought up on that conversation, I'll talk to him again about that because he's easy to talk to, and maybe that'll ring a bell or something. But and he sent me a tape that sounds like Clean Flesh, but throughout each song, Joe is actually doing clean singing. He has his Clean Flesh vocals, but then he has clean singing over certain parts, which I tend to think that's might be a Clean Flesh demo or one of Joe's projects that was just never released and recorded. So there is stuff out there, you know. Just don't know the people with all this stuff all the time.
Yeah, that's when I'd seen Clean Flesh on 3 occasions back in the 90s. Joe would change up his style wildly between, you know, he wasn't quite, you know, finding his perfect note. He was sounding consistently good, but just different in every performance. So he eventually settled on the voice that he used on the Clean Flesh EP, and that's why I heard I had a live recording. I've been frantically digging through boxes of demos trying to find this, but there was a recording from Piqua, Ohio, where I was born, and there's another unnamed song and another version of Impalement of a Whore, and that's done in the Clean Flesh style with the drum machine and Joe's voice being like it was on the Clean Flesh EP. So I've heard 4 different versions of that song, but Harold was telling me that, like, no, it can't be the drum machine. It's we're using this electronic kit, but I swear to God it's the exact same SR16 Alesis that Joe would always use.
Yeah. Well, who knows? I have problems remembering stuff so far back, so maybe the guys just, you know, when they're rehearsing it. Like Harold lives 4 hours away from Joe. I don't even know when last time he's seen Joe. So
the last time I saw any of these guys would have been 1997.
Yeah, so that's over 20. Yeah, it's about 25 years ago. So I wouldn't imagine a lot of these guys would remember a lot of this stuff either, especially as many different rehearsals and recordings that they do and how many times they switch up. Because, you know, it's not uncommon for death metal bands or any band really to write a song and then switch it up, you know, and just constantly try to improve on it or take things out they don't like. And it probably would happen with them, I would imagine.
Yes, if I can interrupt just a second, Clean Flesh did have a thing with being kind of perfectionist. They would change things up a little bit, or if they were to record something, then they'd say, "Oh, I want to re-record my tracks," and stuff like that. And it was never quite perfect enough. I had a couple different conversations, one with Joe about this subject, and another with David Geyer, in which it's like, "Oh, our old stuff sucks, and the new stuff we're doing is so much better," and it was always like that with them.
That's why I didn't get that EP, the CD I could have put out, oh man, about 15 years ago. But Joe, that was his whole thing. He's like, "Man, this EP is some of the worst stuff I've ever done." He didn't like it. Like, wait till you see. I have this demo that Joe did before Heinous Killings. He did his own band called Thou Will Suffer. So I have this on CD, and then he went and changed the name pretty much to Heinous Killings. And some of these songs are just redone Heinous Killing songs, and they sound a bit different. So he would do the, he's very, I mean, think about it, the guy's been doing death metal for almost 30 years, and he's only got one single full-length out. Talking to him throughout the years when I was always excited for everything he did, because it was always good. But, he would record a song, give it to you, like, man, it's terrible, I never released that shit.
Yeah.
And, it's like when he finally wrote it and put it out on Heinous Killings full-length, it wasn't much better or much different, really. It wasn't that big of a deal to put so much, effort into, like how he wanted it to disappear. Because in that EP, he did not want that CD to be out for the longest time. But now, he's finally like, yeah, cool. He's a lot of interest in it. There's always been interest in it. But, he's considered the Clean Flesh terrible. Considered Heinous Killings is based, and that's what good stuff is to him. So, it's based on fans and their opinion, and then you got the band members with their opinions. And everybody's going to have a little different opinions. It's just how Joe was, right? He was a perfectionist, I'll say that. He definitely put a lot of thought into it.
Okay, well, do you have any questions for me? I would like to think that my memory is a little bit better than most other people's from that time period. Do you have any questions for me about Clean Flesh or anything else from that time period?
no, I mean, you saw him. If you know anybody with any VHSs or any of that, or I don't know if you still talk to Rick Smith, because I may need to find him on Facebook again. Because he unfriended me. He was on there for a while, and last time I talked to him, he didn't seem like he cared to talk, so I don't go right.
He was quite resistant. He claims not to remember much. He says he hasn't picked up a guitar in years. I've had pretty good online conversations with him, but he was the only guy in the band that I hadn't talked to much in person or on the phone back in those times. I knew David Geyer and Steve Haas a few years before Clean Flesh, because they lived in the same area that I did in Shelby County, Ohio. But whereas Rick and Joe lived way on the other side of Columbus.
Yeah. Well, did David Geyer? I've never talked to him at all. I don't really know anything about him. Did you talk to him about what he has? If he has any Clean Flesh stuff? Because
I do not recall having any online conversation with David Geyer.
Yeah, I haven't that name. I mean, I wouldn't know the guy, because when I saw, look at him on the back of the Clean Flesh thing, he kind of reminds me of Harold.
He used to be really skinny back then, but now he's in pretty good shape. And I've looked at his Facebook profile. He looks pretty normal and looks in great physical shape. So there you have it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he's doing good. I don't. He may have some stuff by Clean Flesh. I just haven't went after it all, because it doesn't seem like these guys really care to have much to do with each other anymore. So I don't pursue it and try to stir up too much. Like you say with my label, I put out a bunch of old compilations, and as I've learned through the years, a number of these band members, not so much necessarily Clean Flesh, but so many other ones, fucking hate each other, man. They kind of bury the past. They don't want to. I've had a number of these guys say they have absolutely no respect for the other guy, and they won't help just because the other guy wants it out. It's a lot of animosity, and I try not to stir up a whole lot of problems. I don't really like the drama or all that. I enjoy the music. It's always kind of about the music for me, but once you start stirring up feelings and all that shit starts getting talked, I ain't got time for that crap. So that's why I don't go out after a lot of them. The main guy is always with Clean Flesh, with Erotic and all that, is always with Joe Wolf. It's kind of like whatever Joe says.
Mm-hmm.
Seems that is how it works. Without Joe, these guys, I don't know what they'd be doing. So I really don't, that's why I always, when it comes to anything with Joe on it, I always talk to Joe, and Joe always seems to be the brains of the operation. So, and I'd much rather Steve know more, because like I say, Steve he's been wonderful to work with, really easy to talk to, great, nice guy. But not a lot of band members are always like that. Putting together some of these compilations is hell. It's absolutely misery sometimes. You just can't get a lot out of them, or you'll finally get talking to one of the guys, like, man, I don't want that shit out. No, I don't put it out. A lot of other guys put it out, and then you kind of stuck somewhere. What do I do? You don't want to technically disrespect someone. It's their music. They took the time out of their life to make it. If they don't want it out, then I understand,
All right. Well, what you had to say kind of confirms what I've kind of suspected all along, and it gives me a great sense of optimism to hear that all these songs that I've been wanting to hear for years, if you're not going to put it out, I know at least they're out there somewhere, but you got to hope, a flood doesn't happen, a fire doesn't happen, or who knows what. All right, now it's time to wrap it up, and now's your opportunity to plug whatever material or whatever projects you got going on.
Well, we got coming out, we got some vinyls, we got, my next release I got coming out maybe this month, and it's the beginning of next month, is the Darkfield Gutricide Split, which Darkfield actually has members of Splatter Cadaver out of Wisconsin, so some true old school guys, and I love the Darkfield stuff. And then Gutricide has old members from Embalmed from the early 90s, 89, and then Gruesome Face from 89, 90. They started a band called Gutricide, so I got a split coming out with them, and I love it. I got the Skinless Progression Towards Evil 25th anniversary vinyls coming out this month. We got the Hidden Pride vinyls coming out from Canada. I got a band called Gouger. That's the only new band I've ever signed with newer music, a more recent band out of Scotland. I put their little EP out on some CDRs, but they're working on a new EP, and I'll be putting that out on Pro CD. I'm not sure when that'll come out. I'm still waiting for the guys to send me the material. But that is a new band, the only new band. Well, I guess Darkfield's a new band, but they're the only newer bands that Burning Darkness ever worked with all new music. Everything else in compilation.
I guess it must be real good.
Yeah, well, what we're doing is these splits. We got for any European people that read this to help out with shipping. And shipping just costs so much out of America. A lot of stuff is licensed through Self-Made God out of Poland. So if you're in Europe and you don't want to spend a ton of fucking money, hit up Self-Made God. They should have all this stuff. So got that going for us a little bit more. And when it comes to other new stuff, shit, there's the Repudilation vinyl's coming out. That's a big one for us. We're pretty pumped about that. But all this stuff is very limited now. We're not doing these in big quantities or anything. There's going to be 250 of them in 3 different colors. So people want them. Hopefully they act fast. If not, then they sell out. And then they, you know, you see once the shit sells out, all of a sudden a lot of this stuff, from drowsy bonkers how much it goes up. I'm just so surprised at the value of some of it once it sells out. Like, I had that original Clean Flesh EP, and I sold that thing for like $500 to a guy in Germany, and I didn't want to sell it, but he offered me so much, and I had 2 copies, so I was like, all right, take this one. And that one's got some pretty good prices on it, and once I put the CD out, though, that changed a little bit. Yeah, some of these things, it's really kind of surprising the value they go up in once they're sold out.
All right. Well, perfect. That sums it up. I'll be following up with you accordingly, and I'll definitely put my order in for Fleshgrind and Repudilation, and of course the upcoming Erotic Incisions and Clean Flesh stuff. All right. I'm really excited. Keep up the good work.